It's been a decade since everything changed for our family. My children have grown, and so much has shifted. Yet certain memories never fade. Mom, tomorrow is Grandpa's anniversary, my daughter reminded me, casually grabbing a piece of toast before rushing out the door. My son, now an adult with responsibilities of his own, echoed the sentiment as he left for work. Since my father passed 5 years ago, his absence has lingered over us, though he's still very much a part of our lives. My children became my support system, helping me care for my father during his final years as dementia overtook him. I regret that their youth was marked by those difficult times. I often wonder if they just wanted a simpler, carefree childhood. But as I watch them grow, I realize how those years have shaped who they are. Looking back, I'm struck by how each decision we made together led us to where we are now. A place still overshadowed by memories, and a past we can't quite leave behind. My name is Karen, and my story started with Jim, my husband, and the love of my life. At 30, I married him, and we quickly became a family of 4, with a son and daughter to make our home complete. Jim was a warm, gentle soul, and I thought our life together would be filled with simple happiness, grounded in the small joys of family life. We bought a modest house that felt like a castle to us, convinced we'd live out our days there in peace. But not long after our daughter's first birthday, we were dealt a cruel hand. Both Jim's father and my mother passed away, leaving an enormous void in our lives. Then, as if fate couldn't bear to see us happy, Jim was taken from me just 2 years later. I was suddenly a widow at 45, left to raise Robert, our son entering 6th grade, and Betty, our little girl who was only 4 at the time. Standing alone in the midst of such profound loss, I could only think of one thing. How was I going to do this by myself? The weight of my grief was overwhelming, but the fear and anxiety of raising my children alone overshadowed even that. I couldn't afford to collapse under the pressure, so I forced myself to be strong. I vowed never to cry in front of my children, no matter how much it hurt. They needed to see me as a pillar they could rely on. And yet, not everyone saw my strength the way I intended. Jim's mother, Mary, saw my composure as coldness. "How can you look so calm after losing your husband?" she sneered one day. Mary had never hidden her disapproval of me. She was convinced that I was the reason Jim was pulled away from her, even blaming me for his death in her own twisted way. Her accusations and insults only added to the sorrow I carried, but I couldn't allow her to shake my resolve. For the sake of my children, I had to press on, to be the mother they needed and somehow hold our shattered family together. Life moved forward, slowly and painfully, until one afternoon, a phone call threatened to unravel everything I had been struggling to hold together. The call was from Ellie, a family friend who had always been a source of comfort. Her voice was gentle, but I sensed something in her tone that made my heart sink. "Karen," she said hesitantly, "I think something's wrong with your dad." The words hung heavy in the air, bringing back memories of my father's strength and the way he'd supported me through life's challenges. Could it be possible that he, too, was slipping away? I stayed awake that entire night, haunted by worry and the lingering suspicion that I wasn't prepared to lose another loved one. By morning, I was resolved to find out the truth. My father deserved the same strength I had shown my children, no matter how daunting the road ahead might be. I took my father to see a doctor, and the diagnosis confirmed my worst fears: dementia. The news left me reeling, yet I knew I couldn't crumble. Not again. My father needed me now, just as my children did. The weight of responsibility felt crushing, but I clung to the idea that we could make it through together. I made the decision to have my father move in with us, reasoning that it would be easier to care for him if he were under my roof. However, Mary continued her relentless intrusions into our lives. She would show up unannounced, acting as if she owned the place. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, she rummaged through my kitchen, criticizing everything I did. "Pizza? How ordinary," she muttered, a look of distaste on her face. Her presence was a constant reminder of the burdens I bore, yet I couldn't afford to turn her away, not with my hands so full. Her contempt was the last thing I needed, but I held my tongue for the sake of peace. The days blurred together as I juggled the demands of caring for my children, my father, and the house. I rose at dawn and often didn't collapse into bed until after midnight. Each day was an exhausting cycle of errands, responsibilities, and the weight of keeping everything under control. I didn't want my children to feel the stress I carried, so I hid it as best I could. But sometimes, even the strongest resolve breaks. Late one night, I returned from a shower to find my father standing outside his bedroom, looking lost. "Dad, what are you doing?" I asked, but he only looked at me with a confused expression. I felt the frustration boil over, and for a brief, painful moment, I snapped at him. Tears pricked at my eyes as I led him back to bed, regretting every harsh word. I was supposed to protect him, to care for him in his vulnerability. And yet, here I was, failing him. Sleep evaded me that night. I checked on my father again in the early hours, only to find his bed empty. Panic flooded my veins as I searched the house, fear gripping me tighter with each empty room I checked. Then my son appeared, rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Mom, Grandpa's in my room," he said softly, leading me to where my father was curled up on the floor, a small, fragile figure in my son's bed. My heart ached with the weight of it all, and yet my son's gentle understanding brought a sense of peace I hadn't felt in ages. That night, I made a decision. It was time to leave this house, with all its memories and sorrows, and start anew in my childhood home. The decision gave me a glimmer of hope, a chance to reshape our lives around something less painful. We quickly prepared to sell the house, using the funds to renovate my childhood home to accommodate my father's needs. But Mary, as always, found a way to insert herself into our plans. She arrived uninvited, furious at my decision. "Selling Jim's house? How could you?" she raged, her eyes flashing with anger. I had anticipated her reaction, but it didn't make her words sting any less. To my surprise, Jane, her other daughter-in-law, stood up for me. "Karen's been through more than any of us can imagine," she said firmly, silencing Mary's protests. It was the first time I had felt any support from within Jim's family, and the relief was immense. But peace would be short-lived, as I would soon discover. Shortly after we moved, an incident occurred that would test everything I thought I could endure. I was at work when my phone buzzed with a call from my son. His voice trembled as he told me something was wrong with Grandpa. My heart raced as I rushed home, fearing the worst. When I arrived, I found a scene that felt surreal. Ellie was comforting my daughter, while inside, my father cowered, clutching my son protectively. In the corner stood Mary, her face pale, claiming innocence as a police officer stood by her side. "I didn't do anything!" she shrieked. My son stepped forward, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "Grandma tried to trick Grandpa into giving her his bank card," he said. Mary denied it, accusing my son of lying, but he held his ground. My respect for him grew as he stood up for our family, refusing to back down. Mary was eventually escorted out by the officer, though she faced no formal charges. The news of her actions spread quickly through our neighborhood, and the woman who had once pried into everyone's business now became the subject of gossip herself. Mary's reputation was in tatters, and even her own family began to distance themselves from her. For once, I felt the weight of her constant intrusions lift, leaving space for something like peace to settle in our home. My son had shown remarkable bravery, protecting his grandfather and confronting the woman who had caused us so much pain. That night, as I thanked him, he looked at me with quiet determination. "I'll always protect you, Mom," he said, his words filled with a strength beyond his years. In that moment, I realized just how much he had grown. Life gradually settled into a gentler rhythm. My father's condition worsened, but he remained with us, surrounded by the love of his family. In time, he passed away peacefully, with his grandchildren by his side. His absence left a void, but I took comfort in knowing he had been cared for, loved, and protected. As the years passed, we moved on. But every year, we honored those who had shaped us, laying flowers before their portraits and reminiscing about the lives we had shared. One chilly autumn morning, as I stood before my father's picture, I felt a warmth that told me he was at peace. I had done my best, and for the first time in years, that felt like enough. As I look out the window at the falling leaves, I reflect on the journey we've taken as a family. The path has been long and filled with hardship, but each trial has shaped us in ways I hadn't expected. My children have grown into resilient, compassionate individuals, and I see so much of Jim in them. The love and strength we shared continue to carry us through each day. The house is quiet now, but it's a peaceful quiet, free from the shadows that once haunted us. I know my father, my mother, and Jim are watching over us, proud of the life we've rebuilt from the ruins of the past. And as I close my eyes, I feel them there with me, in the gentle rustle of autumn leaves, guiding us forward into a future touched by their memory.